This revision video is looking at Christian attitudes towards war. Now the best way to look at this is by looking at holy war, just war and no war, because these basically summarise the Christian responses to war. First thing just to note is that Christians on a whole believe war is wrong because obviously it involves killing and death, which obviously is never a good thing. So the general view towards war is it's wrong and it should be avoided where possible. The Bible talks about, the need to aim for peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, Jesus said. So obviously attitudes to war from Christians are that generally it should be avoided where possible. There are some examples where that's not always been possible. Some Christians believe it's acceptable to fight in a holy war. Now a holy war is a war fought for a religious reason, so usually on behalf of God. And there's been some pretty violent holy wars in the past. Take the Crusades for example. This was a war fought to reclaim the Holy Land, Jerusalem, which had fallen into the hands of Muslims. It was actually the Pope that commanded Christians to go and fight and recapture that land. So they went to fight for their religion on behalf of God. Another good example was the Israelites, who basically were given the promised land from God of Canaan. And this is where Abraham, the father of all Jews, basically went on his journey to. They settled, but a great famine hit and they had to leave, and that's why they went to Egypt. And obviously we have the whole story of Moses and the Egyptians and the 10 plagues, and they obviously escaped and they crossed the Red Sea, and it's where God gave the 10 commandments to Moses, and almost instantly the Israelites broke some of those rules, so God punished them and they had to spend 40 years wandering the desert before they could return back to their promised land given to them by God. Now when they actually returned to the promised land, they found that it was inhabited by others, and actually God ordered his people to go to war basically. And you got some good quotes here from Samuel. This is what the Lord says: go attack the Amalekites and destroy everything that they have. Quite forceful in that command there. Destroy them, everything they have. That's not kind of have a chat with them, peacefully ask them to leave, explain to them this is the land that God gave you. No. Another good quote from Joel is to beat your plowshares, that's instruments used for farming, into swords and prepare for war. So again, being commanded to fight and ultimately, to go to war. So to Christians, holy war would be acceptable. Now when it comes to a just war, some Christians will accept a just war, and I do emphasise the word some there, because this is not all Christians. Now what is a just war? Well, this relates to the just war theory, and it's the belief that under certain circumstances or conditions a war can be justified, it can be acceptable. Just war theory was a set of conditions that was created by Sir Thomas Aquinas, and basically he gave some guidance to other Christians about when it is acceptable and okay to fight in a war. Now these conditions were: the war must be started by the proper authority, so kings and rulers, prime ministers, presidents, that sort of thing, not just by common people. Second condition, there must be a good reason for going to war. Makes sense. Third reason, war should be fought for good and not evil. So they were the first three that Sir Thomas Aquinas came up with. They were later added to. Fourth reason, war must be the last resort, so every other peaceful means must be tried. Fifth condition, the force used must be all that is necessary to win, so proportionality. So, don't sort of bomb a whole village to kill 1 or 2 soldiers, and civilians should not be harmed. And the last of the conditions, there must be a good chance of success, otherwise there's no point going to war in the first place. So they make up the conditions of the just war theory. Now, St. Augustine actually spoke of war, and he said that actually wars that try to aim, or the aim is to punish evil, are actually peaceful acts. So claim that war can be seen as a peaceful act because of what you're trying to install. So again, war can be justified. Obviously, those Christians who don't agree with just war or holy wars would obviously opt for no war. And this is because they believe in non-violence and usually are pacifists and therefore obviously want to promote peace. However, some of these do actually partake in a war, and these are known as conscientious objectors. And you can see from this little picture here, they would take on roles that would promote peace, so things like stretcher bearers, ambulance drivers, nurses, so anything that basically didn't involve war and killing or adding to the killing. So they would actually promote peace but still partake in the wars. When it comes to no war, why do Christians believe this? Like I already said, usually because they are pacifists. And pacifism is obviously the belief in never using violence. Violence is always wrong. Why do they believe this? Well, it goes back to the teachings of Jesus, and one in particular works well here when Jesus said, "Love your enemies and those who persecute you," showing that it's the Christian principle of love, and war does not really fit into that idea and Christian principle of love. That is how Christians would respond to war. So you've got the ideas of, if it's a holy war, yes, they'd fight. If it's a just war, some Christians would fight. But the general view for Christians is that war is wrong because it involves killing. And those Christians who believe war is wrong, so therefore they would opt for no war due to their pacifist beliefs.